Hello all my Hello all my merry makers, and welcome to a Merry Making Monday. My name is Becca, and welcome. That was wow. Hi, welcome to any newcomers. If you are a newcomer, I suggest that you start at the beginning of this series, because today we are going over the very last part of a series that I've been doing, a cuff down sock. I have attempted to make a playlist on my channel. Please let me know if I've missed anything in that playlist, so that I can remedy that. So, you are going to need some tools today other than just your knitting needles. You are going to need a darning needle for the of the appropriate size, and scissors, because today we're doing the toe of your cuff down sock. Buckle up, sweethearts, this one is a doozy. So for the last and final time, we are using Red Heart Super Saver in retro stripe for this tutorial / make along. We've been making a pair of house socks for my 4-year-old. And in case of any of you are wondering, she wears a size 11 big kid shoe. I realized I never said how big her feet were in shoe size. Alright, so we are at the part where we are going to start doing the toe. And we will be alternating between a decrease row and a knit row, just like we did with the heel. Okay? So, I am going to knit the first row. I know that seems counterintuitive, but that's basically just to get rid of my stitch marker. And this is also a good time to go and make sure you've got all your loops facing the same way, and everything is exactly where it should be, because we're about to start the decrease row here in just a minute. Now, I always like to start on the front of the sock. You technically can start on the back of the sock. Just remember, wherever you start, if you change it, that's your new, remember that you changed it. Alright. Now, the decreases we're going to be using are the same ones that we used for the heel, which are the slip, slip, knit, and the knit two together. Remember, the slip, slip, knit leans slightly to the left, and the knit two together leans slightly to the right. That is the only difference between the two. And if you are not submitting your work to a judge, it really doesn't matter, unless you are a picky prissy princess like me. Alright. So now we're ready for the decrease row. And just like our heel, I will knit the first stitch, and then on the right side of my work, I'm going to slip, slip, knit. And I'm going to go ahead and walk you through that again, just in case you forgot. So, put my needle in as if to knit, slip it, put my needle in as if to knit it, but I slip it, then I slip it back on with my working needle in the back, and then I draw the yarn through both needles at the same time. Then I knit the last 3 stitches, Now I knit these two together. And then I knit the last stitch. Alright? And then I do the same thing on this side. Knit the first stitch. Oh, slip, slip, slip. Bring my yarn through both of them. Knit to the last 3. And I just realized that I forgot my usual disclaimer, which is I am right-handed and a continental knitter. So the way I knit, if those do not apply to you, may seem confusing. If you're left-handed, it's going to be confusing. If you're English knitter, it's just going to look different. Alright? And now that I've done a decrease on both sides of my foot, this is the front, this is the back, it is time for a regular knit row. And I, just like the heel, I'm gonna, I may have said this already, but I'm gonna go ahead and reiterate it. I'm gonna alternate between knitting and decreasing. And in case you did not remember the magic number for this sock, it is 6. If you don't remember what a magic number is, it's the amount of stitches I cast on divided by, at the very beginning of this cuff down series, divided by 4. So our goal, like the heel, is 6. Alright? I will meet you there. Alright, so now I just did a decrease row, and my decrease round, and I'm at 6. But before we begin the kitchner stitch, I am going to knit one more row. And that's, again, just to make sure everything lines up correctly. You know, I don't have any weird holes. Alright, so first thing you need to know about your doing a kitchner stitch is that it's supposed to be an invisible seam in knitting, and that when you do it, there needs to be the same number of stitches on both your needles, and it involves having a long enough tail to do it. Now, I do 4 passes front to back. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's just to double, triple make sure that I have more than enough yarn to do what I'm doing. Alright. Now, I'm going to show you what I have written down, and it's not going to be or a card that I have. This is a card that I got from a dyer called Lemonade Shop. I'm not affiliated with them, but they do have some pretty yarn, I think. I ordered some yarn from them, and this was with the yarn, and as you can see, I have it taped into what I refer to as my Bible. It tells you how to set it up. It tells you the 4-step process. And if you've never done Kitchener before, this looks like a whole bunch of gobbledygook. If you have done Kitchener before, I'm trying to keep this up here long enough so that you can take a screenshot or write it down. So, this is where your sewing needle, tapestry needle, yarn needle, whatever you call this needle. Each person calls it something different. I know most people either call it a yarn needle or a tapestry needle. Alright, so you're going to insert this needle in the front through your yarn as if you're if it was a knitting needle, as if you were purling. Okay? But that stitch doesn't come off. Then, in the back, you insert your needle as if you were knitting, pull it through, and then that stitch does not come off. And that's your setup. Okay? Now, I always recommend, if you know you're about to do kitchner stitch, that you, once you start it, you don't finish it. Because once you get the rhythm, you want to keep it. Alright, and I like to talk myself through it every time, even though I've done it numerous times. So I am going to put my needle in as if the front, as if I'm going to knit it, as if this was a knitting needle, and then now this stitch comes off. Okay? And then the next stitch, I insert my needle, still in the front, purl-wise, but that one stays on. Then I insert my needle in the back as if I'm going to purl, and then that stitch comes off. And you notice every time I move my yarn, and then I put my needle in as if I'm going to knit, and then that stitch stays on. I'm going to go a little bit faster now. Knit off, purl on. Purl off, knit on. Knit off, purl stays on. Uh-oh, caught the back. Purl off, knit, knit, stays on. Okay, and after I finish my 4 steps, I always stop and look and say, do I have the same number of stitches? If the answer is yes, I keep moving. So, insert my sewing needle as if I'm gonna knit. That comes off. Insert as if I'm gonna purl. That stays on. Now, you may not have noticed it, but I did, but this back one fell off prematurely. Okay? Insert my needle in the back as if to purl. That one comes off. Insert it as if I'm going to knit. That one stays on. Okay? Knit on, or knit off, purl on. Purl off, knit on. We are at the last stitch, folks. So, obviously, we're just gonna take these off. So, knit off, there's nothing to purl. Purl off, there's nothing to knit. Pull it tight. And you've got a pretty invisible seam. But that does go right across the toes, so if you have sensory issues, that this may not be the toe for you. Alright. Then That goes into the sock. And now I'm going to show you how to finish this bad boy, so that it does not come undone. Okay? So, this is called weaving in your ends. Some people don't like to do it. Again, it's kind of like gauging or doing a swatch. If you don't do it, I can almost guarantee you that you will not like yourself. So you're just weaving the thread in and out of these loops. It will not show up on the other side. I do about 5 forward, and then if I can cross back over my yarn, you know, and back through that semi-knot, and then cut off the excess. And then we also need to weave in this little bad boy. Okay? So I try to look at where it's coming from, which is there. So I want to make sure it stays there. So I'm going to go back, kind of following this right here. And I'm just following my yarn. And this is going to hide it. Hide my join. Okay, so again, once you go front and back a couple of times, stretch it out a little bit, cut the excess. My join is invisible, or close enough. And here you go. Now, because of the yarn, these socks don't quote unquote have the same stripes so that in that way they do not match, but they're roughly the same size and they're made out of the same yarn, and matching socks are overrated in my book. I am so glad you joined me for this multi-part series. I'm heavily considering another multi-part series called Yarn Basics. I met with a friend over the weekend who wanted to know more about yarn, and was surprised by how little or how much information there was to impart to her. So if that's something you're also interested in, I might call it Beginner Basics. That will be in addition to regular merrymaking Mondays, because I think for some people, you know the basics. So that might be a once a month thing. After this, I really want to take a break from socks, so we might tackle that purse. And then I hope you'll join me for Wednesday for what you're working on Wednesday. Until then, my merrymakers, make what makes you merry. Ciao.